The analysis fixates on kinetic threats. State-level rhetoric from Iran is met with warnings against escalation. Source number 2. Pilots adapt F-16 tactics for a war that is already obsolete. Source number 3. This is a strategic misdirection. The primary vector of systemic risk is not the missile you can see. The actual weapon is silence. The protocol targets the nervous system of global finance and military command, undersea fiber optic cables. This isn't theoretical. The blueprint was tested in the major cyber attack on Poland's energy grid. Source number 4. Analysts at RUSI confirm these choke points are the single greatest liability in the Western security architecture. Severing these data arteries does not just disrupt markets. It creates the blind Leviathan, a superpower with immense kinetic capability but no sensory input, no satellite data, no financial intelligence, no command and control. This engineered information vacuum forces a launch-on warning posture, baiting a catastrophic overreaction. It is the mathematical certainty of asymmetric escalation, a non-kinetic attack designed to trigger a kinetic, system-ending response. The official narrative is a calculated distraction. Conventional warfare is presented as a contest of strength, but its true origin is weakness. The vector for systemic risk begins not with an act of aggression, but with a national solvency crisis. A state facing terminal domestic collapse, where its internal liabilities exceed its capacity to pay, must export that crisis or implode. This is not a theory. It is a diagnosis. According to CSIS analysis, the war itself becomes the primary domestic liability. An unpopular conflict accelerates the treasury drain, creating a death spiral. The kinetic cost becomes mathematically unsustainable. The state is forced to find a new, cheaper form of leverage before it is consumed by its own strategic blunder. Weakness forces a pivot to asymmetry. When conventional protocols fail, they must be discarded. Reports confirm Ukrainian pilots were forced to invent new F-16 tactics because standard NATO training was designed for a symmetrical conflict they are not fighting. This is the tactical admission of a strategic reality. The old rules guarantee defeat. The pivot's objective is to attack the opponent's systemic vulnerabilities at near zero cost. This is the blueprint. A confirmed major cyber attack on Poland's energy grid in December 2025 demonstrates the protocol in action. The target is not an army. It is the core function of the state itself. The goal is not victory. It is paralysis. The cyber attack is the bait. The intended outcome is a disproportionate kinetic response from the conventional power. This overreaction serves two functions. It drains the stronger actor's economic and military liquidity, and it provides the political justification for further escalation. The weaker actor is not trying to win the fight. It is trying to break the system. This is a solvency trap, executed with mathematical precision. The blueprint for systemic collapse is not political. It is mathematical. The math doesn't lie. Analysts at the Royal United Services Institute, RUSI, confirm the core equation. A $5 million main battle tank can be neutralized by a $500 drone. This is not an anomaly. It is the inversion of the entire kinetic cost structure of modern warfare. This economic leverage is what strategists call the democratization of violence. It's not an ideology, it's a market force. The barrier to entry for projecting lethal force has collapsed to near zero. granting weaker actors the ability to impose a solvency crisis on a conventional superpower. Every engagement becomes a net negative financial transaction. The weaker actor is not trying to win a kinetic battle. They are baiting a superior force into bankrupting itself, one asset at a time. The tank is not the primary target. The national treasury is. This economic pressure is the accelerator for asymmetric escalation. It forces adversaries to probe non-kinetic vectors, like the cyber attack targeting Poland's energy grid, to provoke a kinetic overreaction that is, by design, economically fatal. The next systemic crisis will not originate in Washington or Brussels. It will be launched from a gray zone, a designated proxy laboratory, where the protocols of economic warfare are tested and perfected. These are not random hotspots of chaos. They are strategic assets. The blueprint is already public. In December 2025, a major cyber attack targeting Poland's energy grid was intercepted. This was not merely hacking. It was a non-kinetic siege exercise. The objective: determine the precise failure point required to destabilize a NATO-allied state without firing a single shot, gauging the kinetic cost of a conventional response. This testing is happening in live-fire environments. Ukrainian pilots report that standard NATO F-16 tactics are irrelevant for their conflict. They are being forced to innovate new asymmetric protocols on the fly. Ukraine has become the primary laboratory for calculating the exact ratio of conventional force attrition to non-kinetic leverage. These physical and digital labs calibrate the bait. Rhetoric, as documented in the escalations between Tehran and the U.S., is a component of the protocol. It is a calculated irritant designed to provoke a launch-on-warning posture from a superior conventional power. The goal is to force the opponent into a predictable and therefore exploitable sequence of actions. Finally, populations themselves become a vector. The termination of temporary protected status for Somalis amid U.S. travel warnings is not a humanitarian issue. It is a strategic variable. According to RUSI, unstable regions serve as staging grounds, creating predictable flows of human capital that can be used to stress the logistical and solvency limits of target nations. It is a mathematical certainty. The gray zones are where the weapon is being built. The next systemic shock will not be an invasion. It will be an asymmetric attack, perfected in a proxy war and calibrated against a non-military target. It is designed to trigger a kinetic overreaction from a Western power, a response that will be the true vector of collapse, liquidating its own economic and political solvency. The launch-on-warning doctrine is not policy, it is a mathematical trap. CSIS analysis confirms this protocol mandates a full-scale retaliatory strike upon detection of an inbound attack before kinetic impact. The system was designed to deter a peer competitor in a world without digital ghosts. This protocol is now a systemic liability. A weaker actor does not need missile parity. They need to create ambiguity. In December 2025, Poland's Prime Minister confirmed a major cyber attack targeting its energy grid. This was a dress rehearsal. The real target is not the power grid, but the data grid of command and control. A cyber attack blinds the radar network. The early warning system goes dark. Is it a system error, or are the satellites already destroyed? This is the fog of digital war. The commander is faced with a solvency crisis of information. Waiting for confirmation becomes a gamble on national existence. The doctrine forces the decision. Out of fear of a decapitation strike, the commander must assume the worst-case scenario. This is the core of asymmetric escalation. A non-kinetic attack baits a kinetic overreaction. The weaker actor doesn't defeat the conventional power. It forces the power to defeat itself. As one Ukrainian pilot noted, legacy NATO tactics are built for a different war. The new war is fought by triggering the adversary's own protocols against them. The purpose of a calibration shot is not kinetic destruction. It is data acquisition. According to analysts at RUSI, adversaries require a clean dataset on systemic response protocols before triggering a full-spectrum solvency crisis. The foiled cyber attack on Poland's energy grid, documented by ASIS, was not a failure. It was a successful test of NATO's digital thresholds. This aligns with battlefield reports where Ukrainian pilots are forced to discard obsolete NATO tactics, signaling a core doctrinal fragility against asymmetric threats. The vector for the American calibration event is already embedded. While Washington issues conventional warnings to Tehran against escalation, this misreads the protocol. Asymmetric escalation leverages internal liabilities to create attribution impossibility. The termination of temporary protected status for Somali nationals provides the perfect political accelerant, a prepackaged domestic crisis vector that makes clean attribution to a state sponsor politically untenable. The forecast is a mathematical certainty. Within 11 months, expect a coordinated blackout targeting the digital and physical logistics infrastructure of a Tier 1 U.S. port. The target will not be the grid, but the data and switching centers managing container traffic. The event will be officially attributed to domestic actors or cascading hardware failure. This misattribution is the intended trigger, designed to bait a kinetic overreaction against the wrong target and initiate the system-wide cascade.